Now, I want to address another important issue of concern to all of us that was no part of our agenda. I do not have to tell you how challenging the issue of the constitutional definition of marriage is for each and every one of us. Many of you have written to me directly to share your concerns and those of your constituents. Circumstances demand that we deal with the issue now because of very recent court decisions based on the Charter of Rights. The Canadian Alliance has attacked the courts for years. They attack so-called judicial activism. It is a code for their profound opposition to the Charter of Rights, a charter that was passed by Parliament and that Liberals and all Canadians respect and cherish and want to keep it, and it is one of the great accomplishments of the Liberal Party of our generation. So let us not fall into the trap on this issue. This is not about weakening Parliament. It is not about weakening traditional religion. It is not about weakening the Canadian social fabric. In fact, it is about giving Parliament its rightful voice. It's about protecting religious traditions and rights. It is about giving force and effect to Canadian values, values of mutual respect, justice, and equality. All of us understand that Parliament must always act in accordance with the Constitution. In the case of same-sex couples, we need to be guided by how court after court have been interpreting the Charter of Rights. And the courts have been telling us that the notion of separate but equal has no place in Canada. You know, therefore, we drafted a bill that guarantees the absolute right of churches to decide what is required for a religious marriage. Nobody will force any church to make marriage that are under the Constitution, because this is a religious issue and has to be decided by the church. The civil part of unions is something else, and it's why we have to respect the Constitution. So the church will have the rights, and at the same time, we will guarantee as well the equality rights of all Canadians. We're now asking the Supreme Court to tell Parliament what is in accordance with the Charter of Rights. Because I know that Liberals and the vast majority of Canadians do not believe in using the notwithstanding clause. When members of Parliament know what is possible within the framework of the Charter, then they will be able to vote in accordance with their conscience and with all the facts in a free vote with no instruction from party whips. So, I urge you all to give this careful consideration at the appropriate time, to cool the rhetoric, not to fall into traps set by the opposition. Believe me, for someone of my generation, born and brought up in Catholic rural Quebec of my youth, this is a very, very difficult issue. But I've learned over 40 years in public life that society evolves, that the concept of human rights evolve often more quickly than some of us might have predicted, and sometimes even in ways that make some people uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, we have to live up to our responsibilities, and none of these are more essential than the protection of the Constitution and the fundamental rights it guarantees to all Canadians. You know, it's not a problem that I wanted to deal with. It came to us in the spring, the day after the judgment of the court in Ontario. It was legal in Ontario. And the provincial government followed through. They started to register these unions right away, because that was a decision of the court. But the court and the Constitution want us to speak on that, because the definition belongs in the Constitution to us. I'm telling you, I would have preferred not to have to deal with it. But you know me, I never run away from a problem. I never run away from a problem. It has to be solved. We have to be calm. We have to consider everything. It will take some time. It was the course that was open to us. I knew that the caucus was divided. I was at the caucus. I went to the cabinet. We had a long discussion, and the decision was made. And we have now to go to the end of the problems and find the solution that respect the Charter of Rights and Freedom. Interpretation of rights, you know, sometimes go one way or the other. That leave us somewhat uncomfortable. But there is a reality. I rather see interpretation that guarantee rights than take away rights. I was the Minister of Justice. These questions were mentioned at that time. The society was not there. Society evolved. Winston Churchill in 1905 quit the Conservative Party of Great Britain to become a liberal for one problem of the same nature. At that time, it was both immoral and illegal to marry the sister of your deceased wife. It was illegal. It was the same thing for a woman to marry the brother of the deceased husband. It was unacceptable at that time. Some other generation, not long ago, in our society, people, the women had not the right to vote. The natives had not the right to vote. Probably the people of those days thought there was some good reason for that. I know better, because it's very useful to have women around you, you know, especially me, because Aline is with me. I have to say that, no doubt. But for in the cabinet and in the caucus, and I've made a lot of efforts. That's something that even with the time of great Laurier, it was not part of the culture of the day. So society evolved. And if we are liberals, we have to recognize that. So it's what I'm telling you. It's part of our heritage, you know, of the Liberal Party. We are the greatest political institution in Western democracies. No party has done better than us. I was in England again this summer talking with progressive governments, discussing issues, and they all turn to us. You know, when I think about immigration, you know that here, you know, they all have problems in Europe to welcome a few immigrants in some countries. And I would say in Canada, I have a problem with immigration. I promise that I will have 310,000 new immigrants a year, and I don't achieve it. The guy was speechless that I had this type of problem, you know, and that the diversity that we have in Canada, that it's what is needed today. When we see what's going on in the world today, you know, what arrive in Jerusalem, what arrive in Baghdad, the people who cannot live together because they have different religion or different language and so on. While here in Canada, we have been able to do that for generations, that we welcome our differences and we celebrate our differences. And everybody is very proud of what they are. And they come and share both the responsibilities and the advantages of being a Canadian. If that existed in the world, if these qualities that we have made in our country to make sure that we are, the most tolerant nation in the world, probably. If it were to be like that everywhere in the world, there will be much more peace around the world. And it's my last time that I'm talking to you at this summer caucus. And I want to share something with you by telling you something that is extremely important to me. I'm a very proud Liberal. I joined the Liberal Party at 21 years of age at Laval University. I became the president of Liberal Club at Laval University during the time that Diefenbaker was the Prime Minister and Duplessis the other Prime Minister. Nobody said I wanted to have a promotion. Remember that very well. I could not have a vice president because nobody wanted to accept any role in the Liberal Party. They were afraid of losing their loan or their bursary from the provincial government. It's pretty painful for you when you think you won an election that I had organized, so there would be no difficulty and no vice president. I managed to have a vice president because Mademoiselle Plante was there. She was the sister of one of my good friends, and I suggested her name, and she was so shy she could not say no. In fact, she had that type of character. She is a missionary in Africa as a nun now. That is, but that is where I started in those days. So I want to tell you that only two prime ministers in Canadian history, Mackenzie King and Lester Pearson, have turned their party over to a new leader who has won the next election. I want to be the third. I will do everything to make sure that the new leader will have the best conditions possible to win a fourth consecutive Liberal majority government. We have a great record for my successor to build on, a record which the candidates for the leadership and each and every one of you is part of and proud of. A record of liberalism and of building a new Canada for the 21st century. A record we will complete in the fall session of Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great day for Aline and I, because she is counting the days, I'm counting the weeks now. A few weeks ago I was counting months, now it's weeks. And I want to leave the party in extremely good position. We won 3 consecutive majority government. And it's tough today. People say we have no opposition. Yes, we have opposition. But we have managed to run the country, to have an open society, to have an open party, rather, that welcome every aspect of the Canadian political life. We have great debates in the Liberal Party, and we have make sure that it will be difficult for the opposition. When people said to me, "Oh, Jean, you're lucky you have no opposition," I said, it's not my job to run the opposition. My job is to run the Liberal Party. And I want to say to all of you here in Norway, I came here many times in my political career. Thank you for coming tonight. For Aline and I, we had a great journey. It will be almost 41 years that I became a member of Parliament when I will quit. It was tough at times. Sometimes it's difficult. But I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, that there is no greater satisfaction to have the privilege to make a contribution as a member of Parliament, as a minister, and eventually for me as Prime Minister, to make this country the best country of the world. Vive le Canada! Merci beaucoup!